I'm always doing that which I cannot do in order that I may learn how to do it. Good afternoon, everyone, to this session. Your host for the day is Dishita Munjal, a student at BML Munjal University in Gurugram. I would like to welcome you all to the Propel Pitchfest23 Masterclass series. The Atal Community Innovation Center, that is ACIC of BML Munjal University, and Propel Incubator have created a platform called Propel Pitchfest23 to support fresh concepts, inventions, and emerging startups. It enables interactions between startups and influential members of the ecosystem, including investors and entrepreneurs. This year, startups participating in the event will have access to $1 million USD financing pool. Well, we are eager to get going. We will focus on how to create a pitch deck in today's masterclass. Today's session will cover the following topics: criteria to shortlist the idea, think long-term, that is vision and mission sustainability, expectations of the founder, and how to design a business plan. Now, allow me to introduce you to the speaker for the masterclass, Ms. Ishima Singla.
Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Ishima here from Planify. I'm the CIO of Planify. It's the biggest startup platform. We connect the founders with the right investors. We not only bring the financial capital, but we also bring the strategic capitals for our founders.
Ishima Singla ma'am has more than 10 years of experience in assisting with the valuation of private companies, equity, securities, business valuation, ASC 805A, ASC 350, impairment testing, DC review, and related valuation. She started with her career as an intern in BMW Financial Services and later joined EY, served for 10 years as manager. In her profile, she looks after the EY European valuations, MBA Finance and Accounting from ICFAI Foundation of Higher Studies, and Bachelor's in Economics from University of Punjab. Now I will hand it over to Ishima Singla ma'am to start the discussion.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I'll try to make this session as interesting as possible. Let's get started. Today, we're going to deep dive into how to create a pitch deck for the investors. Think it more like a cover letter of your business, which actually is the first impression of your business. And hence, it needs to look stellar. Creating a pitch deck is more like an art, a science, but most importantly, it's a storytelling. Your pitch deck needs to tell about the story of your business. It needs to convince the investors that how you're going to make them rich, how your business is going to make them rich. But most importantly, we need to cover all these points under 5 minutes. So today we're going to deep dive into how to create a pitch deck for investors. We're going to focus into a basic outline, how to create the pitch deck, while discussing about what all needs to be covered, and more specifically, what need not to be covered. At least I can tell from the Planify's perspective is that we don't receive not less than 20 pitch decks every single day. Now, because the founders live with their businesses day in and day out, for them, it's more like a baby. So they wanted to mention each and everything about their businesses. But think from the investor's point of view, they don't really have the time to go through those heavy pitch decks with 25 to 30 slides. So we're going to discuss about how to gain the attention of the investors and creating a pitch deck investment ready. So let me quickly share my screen with you all. So I'm going to present one pitch deck example that we have created. So I've actually clubbed a couple of slides just to show you that how we can present. Like, for instance, like competitive slide, I've presented two or three slides. So just quickly, yes. So just give me 1 second. So this is the this is basically a pretty standardized outline with close to 10 to 12 slides. We'll go dig down to each slide and what contents needs to be there. Always remember, as I mentioned, that your pitch deck is like the cover letter of your business. It's more like a first impression, which might get the investors' interest, and it should need to look stellar. So I generally see the first 4 slides where you present your case, the problem statement, the solutions that you're offering. And this is one of the critical part of your whole pitch, as there is a high probability that you will either you will lose the investors' interest or you could possibly might actually win their attention for the rest of your presentation. So the cover slide, this, I just have 2 plain words for this slide is simple but elegant. It should cover a good background, which actually tells about what exactly the company do, along with the company's logo and the name of the company. That's it, nothing else. Plain, simple, and elegant. Next is the problem statement. It presents your status quo. Just explain the current problem in plain 3 sentences. The problem statement should more like a reality check for your investors. It should be without any complicated jargons, 100% straightforward, verifiable statements, and simple to understand. Never and ever make any questionable statements. And actually, this is one of the very important investment thesis that we also follow in Planify. We always look for the companies who are solving the real life problems. It should not be otherwise that they first created the solutions and now they're looking out for a problem. At this point of time, you need to make your investors relatable with the problem and take advantage of that. So very plain, simple, what is the problem that the general population or your target market is facing? And at the next slide, it actually states about the solution your company and your product is offering. 3 problem statements that you have mentioned in the previous slide, and now 3 simple solutions you're providing against them. How are you going to address the problem you just talked about? Instead of, so the most important part, the do's of the slide is, instead of mentioning the features of your product, always mention about the benefits of your service or your product. Let's understand with the help of an example. So in case of hypothetically, you have manufactured an EV vehicle. So instead of saying that we have 1000 megawatt battery, just simply say we have a battery life of 8 hours at one go. So now the investors are forced to think about that, oh, 8 hours battery life, so I need not to charge my vehicle after every 2 or 4 hours. So now they can relate to the solution. Or let's see another example. So this pitch deck is for a toy industry. So if you, instead of mentioning that our toys are made of XXX raw materials, just simply say that our toy is plastic free and hence it is non-toxic for your kids. Which you need to mention those features, those solutions in this slide, which actually adds up to the curiosity of your investors to go to the next slide. Something with which investors can relate themselves. Plain, simple. Just don't use any complicated jargons. Next is the product portfolio. Now, there are a lot of do's and don'ts of the product demo or a product portfolio slide. If you're going to present the demo in one-on-one person, it's always better to present it via recorded session instead of going live, because you risk the demo crashing and following by a whole disappointment, to be honest. I have witnessed multiple pitch decks, multiple sessions where they wanted to present something live and it crashed. So, and if you're sharing the pitch deck over an email, it's always a good idea to attach the video deck too, because it's always a very rare chance that investors will go on the website, they'll make an account, they'll watch the video. But via email, there is a very high probability that they'll watch the video. And if you're meeting in person, following yourself on the app is better choice. But if you are offering these kind of products, then you can present it in this way also, the product portfolio. Always better to categorize your products in 2 or 3 categories, or mention your blockbuster product, your star product in your product portfolio slide. Always remember, whatever way you represent, it should bring like a wow factor from the investors, a wow response from your investors. The first section that we have discussed about the problem, the state, solution, and the product portfolio, it should not be more than 1.5 minutes. Once you have got all the attention, it's time to prove the most important thing is how your company is going to make rich the investors. Simple. Always remember, the investors love numbers. They are not going to give you the money because they like you or they like your product, but they want to know how your team led by your vision can grasp the market opportunity, create a sizable company, and most importantly, give them good returns. So now we've come to the market size slide. So just give me 1 second. Yes. So this is where you look how big the market is and how large the company can become. The market size, it generally happens in two ways: top down and bottom up analysis. Determining the addressable market and then identifying the share market. Let's understand with an example. So this pitch deck that we have created for a toy manufacturing company, they manufacture the toys to 2 to 12 years of age, and they were catering the urban section of the population. So the total addressable market is basically the entire Indian toy market. So now they are not addressing to the overall toy market, but this total addressable market actually speaks about the entire Indian toy market. The next is the serviceable addressable market. So then what we have done is, so we have taken the whole population, then we have found out the kids who are aged between 2 to 14 years. But this company, it actually makes the toys for 2 to 12 years. So we have shut down all the market size which caters to the rest of the age group. And then we've reached to serviceable obtainable market for the urban kids, which is between 2 to 12 years of age. So the one don't in this slide is that don't say that my total addressable market is 2 to 116 crores, and if I even take 1% of this, it will lead to $1 billion company. Because this is not your market. This could be your market in the future, but as of now, your market is this. So we have to give attention to the serviceable obtainable market instead of the total addressable market. It basically involves where products can be sold, what products can be sold, and what is the target pace, the target the population of your product. The next is the competitive landscape. Now, there are multiple ways to tell about the competition. Yes. I have clubbed down a couple of slides here. So this is the grid way to represent your market, and the otherwise is to showcase it with the numbers. Now this grid approach to comparing your company versus the competitors got famous when the Steve Jobs compares the iPhone with the rest of the other phones in the market. If your product stands out far ahead than your competitor, using this representation is a good choice. In this representation, you need to identify those factors which makes your product outstanding. So in this case, this slide that we have created, this is one of the AI advertisement market. And so in the horizontal grid, I have the old school methods and then AI involvement in the advertisement. And in this vertical section, we have the customization and the low end acceptance. So my company, our company stands out because it has a very higher involvement of AI. It saves a lot of time, and you can customize the ads, which was not available in the rest of the sections. So if your product stands out so you have to identify those sections where your company stands out. And then this is from my another deck where I wanted to present that in India, none of the biggest company has more than 200 crore turnover in the toy manufacturing. And so I wanted to present that how our company, even if being from the last 6 months of operation, how our company stands out and become a profitable organization, because what they were facing is that majority of the companies were non-profit making companies. The biggest don'ts I can mention in the competitive landscape is that never say that you don't have a competitive market. you don't have a competitive product. It actually implies two things to your investors. Either you don't know about your market, or you have not done your research, or second, there is no market. Very simple plain. See, even if, so let's see this with an example. Let's understand this with an example. Supposedly you have an EV, you have manufactured an EV vehicle. So the existing transportation, the existing cars is already your competition. And it could be possible that the existing the car manufacturing companies will come up with a EV vehicle maybe in the 2 years or 4 years. You can say that you have a first mover advantage, but you already have a competition in the market. So never say that you don't have a competition. You can say that you have a first mover advantage. You always think about the substitutes that you have. So Maggie has top ramen or Hakka noodles. Maggie never says that I don't have a competition. They have a substitutes. So you need to be very thorough with your research. Because what challenge we have seen is that most of the founders are the techies. They know how to create the product, but the research is not they're good at. So take the help from the professionals to create a pitch deck, because pitch deck is like the first milestone to get the attention of the investors, to get the check, to get the funding for your company. Now this is about the global outreach. We wanted to present that how we have panned out maybe in India or globally. So this slide speaks about the customer acceptance, that the product has already the customers has already accepted your product. There is an acceptance in the market. There is actually a market, and how we are scaling across. So how many stores do you have? How many centers do you have? How many customers you have served? So all these factors that you can present here. The next slide is about the business model. It makes or breaks your chance. Very plain and simple. Make it very simple for investors. In the investor base, we actually, all the companies, all the business models are divided more 9 or 10 business models. For instance, like the transaction-based business or a marketplace business, SaaS-based business, technology, and could be affiliated business. So hypothetically, for instance, you are a transaction-based business, for example, Paytm or PhonePe. Simply say, and just simply tell about your cut rate. Just tell them 1.5% commission on every transaction. Simple. You have to make this slide simple. In case if you're not into a transaction-based, in terms of any of the business, simply tell about your unit of economics, which actually got very popular after the Shark Tank, that how your margins are distributed. What is your average transaction size? What is your revenue? What is your gross profit? What is your EBIT or EBITDA? And what left for the investors or for the company for the reinvestment purposes? What is left in your pocket at the end? So this section speaks about the unit of economics, your business models. And then this section is how you're going to achieve them. But by what channels you are actually getting this sales. Very plain, very simple. Then it's about the go-to-market strategy. It should states about but it is always advisable to pitch your investors with a plan instead of going without it. As I mentioned, the investors want to know that whether the founder has a vision or not. You need to try them at first place to know whether they work, or you're most likely to update it on a regular basis. Trial and error is one of the key. Because the idea is not good, but because of the poor execution or the consistency in the efforts. You need to convince that you have both the idea and the great execution skills to achieve the same. Now, the competitive advantage. Just give me 1 second. Yes. So the competitive advantage, it's basically tells about those factors where you have the advantage over your competitors. It could be the technology, it could be any government grants, it could be any scheme under which you get, it could be any distribution channels, any logistic channels, or any distribution where you have cracked with, where the other your competitors are not able to do that. Any first mover advantage do you have? So you need to highlight those points where you have an advantage over your competitors, your strength factors. You need to identify those factors here and summarize it in this slide. Then it's about the team slide. There are multiple ways that you can present your team slide. There are the two ways that I have presented. So you must have heard about that. You generally we say that we in this for the startups, we don't bet on the company, we don't bet on the products, we bet on the founders. So you need not to be an IIM or IIT pass out to create a successful venture. The investors just want to know that, do you have the relevant experience? Why are you the right people to grow this company? Always remember 3H here: the hustler, hacker, and the hipster trio. The hustler, we generally say that this is the CEO who execute and make everyone interested about the company. The hacker, it's generally the CTO, and finally the hipster, the CMO, who is responsible for creating the brand equity, the brand value of the company. Now, the don'ts for this slide is, please do not talk about those persons who are not fully committed to the company, as it might build like it is not wrong, but it might build a wrong notion to the investors that the founding team in itself is not confident enough. So this is the first factor that you can avoid here. And the second factor is, I am the sole founder and I don't need a team. So there is nothing wrong with the sole founder, but a strong team is always required. And someone who is not appreciating the presence of a good team is like a red flag for the founders. So you generally mention about the founders, their experience, because it actually brings like kind of faith to of the investors that know this company has good founding team, good management team, and they do have a good expertise as well. And then you can have one slide about the traction, which is one of the crucial part of your pitch, because everyone loves numbers and they are interested. How are you going to make them wealthy? If you're earning good revenue, you're growing, then that slide should have only one chart talking about your growth. And so this is about the company who has already achieved some kind of traction. So you can speak about your revenues, the customers that you have attained. But in case if you are a pre-revenue company, then you can talk about the metrics, which is very important to evaluate your performance and set the stage. For example, if I could be you and I run like an e-commerce company, but this is a pre-revenue company, then one important metric for me to evaluate is my user base, my active users. How many users do I have on my app? My daily active users, monthly active users. They're very important, or maybe the app downloads are very important. So more or less, a revenue making company could mention about their revenues in that slide, and a pre-revenue company could mention about the matrices, which is very useful to evaluate their performance. Last is about the funding information. You need to mention about your ask, just make it very plain and simple. Your ask, your the dilution, how much you are willing to dilute, and the purpose of fundraising. How you go. So if I'm raising like $1 million, in return, what ARR I'm able to generate by using the fundraisings. So the do's, don'ts here is, please do not create a FOMO for investors, because it's more like a turn off for investors. So for instance, we have a lot of, so by saying that, you say that we have lots of interested investors and we are closing the round by next week or end of this month. Investors will be like, okay, it's good for you. So creating an urgency is like a turn off for investors, because for them, fundraising is a marathon. It's not a sprint. They need to analyze the company. They need good time to analyze the company. They need good time to interact with you. They need good time to evaluate the market, to understand the market, to understand your customers. They need time to perform their internal due diligences as well. So don't create a FOMO to your investor base. So that's more or less about the pitch deck. your pitch deck should be more like a storytelling. It should be like a story for the investors. Everyone loves the stories. So your pitch deck should be like a story. So these are more or less, your pitch deck should have all those slides. In case if you want to mention further things, for instance, that hypothetically your company comes under any kind of PLI scheme maybe, or the kind of grants they have received, and you wanted to, and the kind of long-term agreements that you have made, what you can do is that you can have those appendices, you can create those sections after the last slide, like an appendix sections, and you can present it here. But the first few sections, the key part should to cover all these slides in your pitch deck. So this is more or less that how to create a pitch deck under 5 minutes for your investors. Open for questions. Anybody who has the questions.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Yes, I have two rapid questions, just quick questions.
Sure.
One is that, does pitch deck depends upon the stage of the venture? Where are the stages? Like, they are in the research phase, they are in the prototype phase, they are in the market ready phase. So does it depend on that? And second question is,
yeah, please go ahead.
How to evaluate in a very early stage, how to evaluate the TAM, the serviceable market, and all those things? Yeah.
Right. So this is a good question. The first question about that, does your pitch deck depends upon the stage at which you are? So definitely, as I mentioned, for instance, as I mentioned in your traction slide, that you do not have any revenue, you don't know what you're going to earn. Instead of going with a very the numbers which is like looks like a very non-attainable numbers for the investors, always mention about the matrices that would be important to evaluate your performance. So your pitch deck definitely depends upon the state at which you are. So for instance, if you are in a pharmaceutical company and you wanted to say that I have not marketed my product so far, but my product is into the beta phase, maybe like a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So it's always better to show that kind of pipeline in your pitch deck. So that's I hope that answered your first query.
Yes, I got to understand about it.
Yeah. And the second about the TAM sum. So we generally evaluate the market based upon the top line and the bottom line. The top line is the total addressable market. So hypothetically, if you are into the business, I think you need to deep down to understand about the market. I believe if you are creating, like for instance, you are manufacturing an EV vehicle and you do not know about the market of the EV. So what you can start is to understand about the population who are using the vehicles as of now, and the cars who are actually getting manufactured, the use basis. So you can try to understand about the sales of your competitive products in the market. And from there you can, so in this case, you can do like a bottom line approach, that first is the target base, the target customers that you have. Second is the sales of your comparable products, and from there it will take it is a very research exhausting process, but it will tell you the like probable market, the probable customers that you can acquire, the sale of your products. By understanding about the sale of your comparable products or your target base, what your competitors are doing so far, their production facilities, the kind of acceptance, these factors would be really make you understand about your market.
Got it. Thank you.
Ma'am, I have a doubt. Actually, some of the ideas will be very niche, like the fund, the venture capitalists or whoever it may be, they might not understand the things what are happening on the ground in that mentioning problems and then solutions, and at last the competitive advantage you have to pull it off. So how will they be able to understand and convince?
Okay, that's a good question. So I'll take an example of one of a very good company. I mean, now that company has become a unicorn. So that company has actually got turned down by 17 of the VCs after they got the funding. So So VCs, so first of all, you need to understand that which VCs you're going to approach or the investor base you're going to approach, because the VCs are actually, few of the investors are looking towards the pre-seed companies or the very initial, like the inception stage, the idea stage, and few of the investors are getting towards the Series A and Series B. So first step is to understand your investor base. You have to try to understand their investment thesis, into which sectors they are. Once you have shortlisted or chucked out the investors that are not going to interest into your idea, you will get a list of the handful of the investors. And then you have to make them understand that how your product, so hypothetically, if your product is into the technology, that how your product is going to make their life easy. So you have to show them that futuristic approach, and to make them understand that this product could have the customer acceptance. You have to tell them like a story. Like for instance, if like for instance the UPI scheme, so you can tell them nobody carries the cash, carrying the cash, or maybe the bank transfer takes time. So what if I'm presenting a solution which would help you to transfer the money within few seconds, and everybody would get interested. So you need to, so that is what I mentioned. The solutions that you're going to mention in your slide should add the curiosity of your investors. So you need to present in that way that would build up that curiosity, that I'm saving your time first. So you need to mention the benefits instead of the features. I'm going to save your time. It is non-toxic. It is good for your health. So these kind of factors that you have to bring up in your pitch deck.
Okay.
Good afternoon, ma'am. This is Srikanth. I would like to know about the timing is very, very short. Out of all these the slides, now, which slide you feel very, very, very most important to the investors, considering the time when we start with the problem statement and solution? No, it almost we lose the timing. Almost we are done. We can't explain the funding or the market, GTM, and other things. Your advice, please, ma'am.
Sure. So that's what I mentioned in the start, is that your problem statement, your solution, and the product demo should not be more than 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes max to max. And first of all, it starts with a story. Second, your product side is very problem statement, because till the time you are not going to mention about the problem that you're solving with your product or your services with your business, you will never get the interest of the investors. So you have to mention about the problem, solution, the product portfolio, and the market size. So these are the very important factors that you have to mention. And then you speak about and if the time persists, then the go-to-market strategies and the competition. And then the competitive advantage can be at the last. These points can be at the last, but your problem, solution, your product, and market size should be covered within the permissible timeline. Because that's very important, because till the time the investors will not know about the problem you're solving, the solutions you're providing, and the market size. There is a market for your product or not. Even if they're not convinced about those factors, it is not. So even if you mention, like, first of all, your competitive advantage, or you have the competition, so they can wait. But the problem statement, the solution, and the market size, they should be covered within a permissible timeline.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, ma'am. I have a doubt. How to describe transaction slide if we are not tracking transactions traction right now?
Sure. So see, traction that I covered in my traction slide as well, that there are the two ways. The one is you are a revenue generating company. You mentioned about your revenues. That's a different part. But if you are a pre-revenue company, your business is still in an ideation stage, and you have not, there is no customer acceptance, there is no revenue that you have generated so far. So the another method to create a traction slide is mention the matrices that you follow to identify or to evaluate your business performance. Very plain and simple. For instance, if you are into an e-commerce company, mention about the active users, like the monthly active users, how they're growing, or maybe the downloads, the app downloads, how they are growing. So actually that helps the investors to understand that whether so revenue is one part to understand the customer acceptance, but if you are gaining the attention of the customer in terms of the user, in terms of the download, that is also very important to understand the customer's acceptance. So I'll give you a background why this is also important. See, for instance, you generally must have heard about the conversion rate. Every single day I receive 100 users on my website or on my app, and my conversion rate is maybe 10%. So out of 100, 10 I get converted 10 of my users into customer base. So if your user base is growing, like from 100 to 1000 to 10,000, your conversion rate could be 10% or 12%, 14%, but your number of customers, from users to customers, is growing also. So if your users are not growing, that is like a red flag. But if your users are growing, that also tells about the customer acceptance, that you're gaining the attention of your customer base. So you can mention about the factors which you actually follow to understand or evaluate the performance of your business. So you can mention those factors in your slide. I hope I answered the query.
So ma'am, what we did was we have 92 users right now. So we sent a Google form, and through which we are tracking the interactions, users, and feedback. So is that a right method?
It should be like your population or the sample size should be good enough. It should not be that you mentioned that we have received like 10 reviews. So, I mean, you can say, if you are saying that you have a good population, you have a good customer or target base, and then out of lakhs, you say that 10 you receive the Google form done by like 10 people, that could bring like a negative notion. So whatever you present, it should be significant in numbers. It should not be like 10 Google feedback forms have been submitted. So your sample size should be good enough to make up to your traction slide.
Ma'am, what would be the matrices for a product business? Like, if we are a manufacturer of a product and then we like are in a pre-revenue, then what would be the matrices for evaluating the business?
And you're a pre-revenue company.
Yeah.
What kind of product, if I may ask?
Like laptop accessories, maybe.
Okay, then for me, first of all, I need to understand the industry, and then about the utilization rate that you can achieve. That could be another. The procurement of your raw materials. Have you signed up any kind of long-term agreements? And another important metric for me could be the long-term agreements, like how much your top line is secure. Those kind of key matrices that we generally see in the production company, that would you face any kind of raw material supply? Do you have your top line secure? Do you have the required licenses or not? Because generally for a leaker based company, you need a lot of licenses. Even if for the laptop accessories, you need a license as well. So have you acquired those kind of licenses or not? So if any pre-revenue company into the manufacturing segment comes to me, I always say that, do you have the required certifications and the licenses for your products or not? If you don't, see, for the small vendors, it might work that your product is not licensed, but if you want to gain traction and if you want to scale up your business, you need those licenses and your certifications. So it's very critical for me to understand whether do you have that or not. So these are the few things that that actually comes into my initial checklist for the production-based companies.
Yes, ma'am. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Again, one rapid more question.
Sure.
we were discussing about the investor perspective and we were totally into it. At an early stage, should the startup approach an investor or not? And when is the right time? I'm just asking that when is the right time to approach the investor, because there are some government grants there, government is supporting some or the other way. So should the startup dependent on those kind of things, or should they directly hop onto the investor's desk? Yeah.
Right. So actually, this is very close to me, this discussion. So I always believe that you should not depend upon investors' money to start your business. I am not a very good believer of that you need investors' money. And what actually I propose to our founders as well is that, so they come to us and they say that we wanted to value 20% of our equity or 25% of equity at this valuation. And being the investor who can get the shares at very cheap valuation, I always ask them not to dilute your equity this much, dilute a little bit, gain some traction, achieve some numbers, come back to me and ask me for an upstick in valuation. See, I mean, this is like a negative point for me because I'm getting the shares at a very higher price. But I always advise the founders that why do you want to dilute your equity at the initial stages and at such a cheap valuation? Take some money, invest into your business, prove yourself right, get some numbers on the papers, come back, and if you need more funds, we are here for you. So the founders should not depend upon investors' money. If your business is scalable, if you have the right product, right vision, I believe that you don't need to dilute much of your equity at an earlier valuation, unless that your business needs a lot of fund to scale. For instance, like a technology, those kind of business actually needs a lot of funding. But if you can stop that, and if you don't need the funding, I always say that just don't dilute your equity at the initial stages.
Got it. Thank you, ma'am. Because we are working in this space in the defense technology sector, so that's why we face a lot of challenges from the investment side, that they don't want to come in the very early stage in this particular sector, which I'm talking about, the space and the defense technology. So investors think that this is a very small market, but they don't want to come in very early stage. So that's why I'm just asking.
Yeah. So first of all, so you need to identify your investor base very importantly, because all the investors are not. So I'm actually working on one of the similar project. So we actually face that kind of challenge. The founders face that kind of challenge, that not much of the investors are very interested, because when it comes to the word defense, lot of reservations comes to the mind, because it brings with a lot of regulations, and it takes a lot of time to convert. The conversion rate is very high in the defense sector, and you need a lot of funding. So first of all, you need to identify your investor base. Don't approach to all the investors. The approach to the investors who actually understand that market and who are willing to invest the money at the initial stages, because I believe your company, your product would need funding to get going.
Exactly, ma'am.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah. So approach to the investors who actually understand your business, to understand your market, and who actually believe that you can make big.
Maybe after this call, I'll approach you as well. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
I have one question. Since you are an expert in the valuation part, is there any thumb rule for doing the startup valuation? Like simple thing, we can't go to the valuation people like big people, no? So they will they'll ask for more money, and they'll take time also.
Right. Actually, there is there's no thumb rule, at least for me. Whenever I evaluate a startup, there are a lot of, so I have a big 85 numbers of checklist for me, and that actually does not involve even one single valuation metric. So you need to evaluate any startup, because you cannot simply apply a DCF method, like a cash flow method, because it's difficult to project the cash flow of a startup company. So I always follow some kind of checklist for them, and I try to evaluate a startup from a very holistic approach, from the market perspective, from customers perspective, from the operational efficiency perspective. And if we need to talk about the valuation, I always use multiple methods to evaluate, to do the valuation, and then I try to understand the extremes and the average of that. So there's not one thumb rule for that. But always track the market, always track the competitors, at what valuation, at what multiple they are getting. At least whenever you'll approach with investors, you should not quote a very high number or also a very low number of your company. So always track the market, always track your competitors at what valuation they're getting the money, but always understand that if they're asking that higher valuation, maybe a higher number, or they're raising the good funds, there must be something which is actually justifying that. It might be that they have earned a good traction. It might be they have earned a good customer base. So you need to understand that. You need to understand the valuation from all those perspectives.
Thank you, ma'am. Can we reach to you for the support for doing the valuation, ma'am? Kindly share your email address, ma'am.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll just write in the box my email ID. Anyone else? Any other questions?
Ma'am, actually, we have started a startup while ago, 3 years ago, and we did a good job in doing that, and we secured a good amount of revenue also. It is still running, and nowadays it is kind of saturated. Now we got a same industry but a different solution, whatever all the people who are doing business like us are facing, and we have come up with a different product. So now, in order to build this product, we need a lot of funding. Do we have to show that our existing startup and bring the funding, or do we have to show the new product as the new company and approach the investors?
So actually, from my perspective, is your previous experience definitely comes very handy, and you can mention it as like one of the slide in your pitch deck that this is what you have achieved, because it will gain the investors' attention. But while pitching your new product, you need to mention about that product, the problem statement, the solutions, the benefits of that product. So the previous product revenue definitely comes very handy, tells about your potential, your experience. But when you're going to pitch to the investors, always mention about this product's benefits, and then discuss about the other points as well.
Sure. Thank you.
So anyone has any queries? I'm deeply grateful for the insightful discussion we had, and we would like to extend our heartfelt thanks for the wisdom you have shared today. I thank you for attending this gathering and dedicating your time and effort.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with all the people, with all the founders.
Thank you, Ishima, for taking the session.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And I think there was a lot of interaction. So hopefully those who have joined in and asked queries would benefit, and they can get more further in guidance from you. And look forward to you at Pitchfest23, all of you. On 27-20 April, we will like everyone to be there, and the discussion can go on at that time. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Davinder ji. Thank you, Dishita, and thank you, Ishima ma'am, for the wonderful session. This is one of the very rarest sessions I have attended. Very useful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. I have shared the email ID.
I got it.
To reach out to me or to my team for any questions. Happy to help. Happy to be part of the journey.
Thanks, Dishita. You managed it well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.